Welcome to day 121. We have 1 Chronicles chapters 14 and 15, Psalm 132, and Matthew 18. So David is building a royal palace. He is expanding his family. He gets lots of supplies from other kings and city-states as tribute, as gifts. The Philistines, though, are not keen on David and David's power and the growing nation that David is putting together. So the Philistines attack as a way to limit David's power. The Philistines still control most of the coast of Israel along the Mediterranean Sea. They are very strong. They are technologically advanced. They have the technology of iron. Now, some people believe that David stole this technology and brought it back to the Israelites after his time with the Philistines, but the Philistines still are a major military power. David, before he does anything, prays to God for guidance and attacks with God's support. David destroys the gods and the idols of the Philistines after winning the battle. David establishes and renews the Levites as the authorities for religious rituals. The Levites were the tribe of Israel that were set aside by God to be the priests and the spiritual leaders in each of the communities that the Israelites had. So all the other tribes had a set area of land that they were given to be in charge of. The Levites were spread out among everyone so that every village, every community had a priest to lead them. So David is renewing this practice as we're getting settled in the promised land after returning from Egypt. The Levites are also in charge of caring for the Ark of the Covenant, or the tent of meeting. David sets up a place for the ark and for worship. The Levites move it properly so no one gets hurt. And then we have, because it's Chronicles, we have a big list of people again. Chronicles is making the story real for the people by connecting the story with the families. Michal had contempt for David's enthusiastic dancing, as we read about yesterday in Samuel, as he was moving the ark to Jerusalem. And so we hear again about the tension between David and his wife Michal. In Psalm 132, this is probably connected to the story of David finding home for the ark. It's a prayer for restoring the dynasty of David and the kingdom of Judah. This was probably written a ways after David's time, possibly even after the exile and return from Babylon. But it is trying to call on God to continue to build up the people of Israel and the line of David. In Matthew 18, we have a concern over rank and a hierarchy. And I think this is a really challenging chunk of Matthew to read for us today, because I think we still really struggle with hierarchy and rank. Who's got more than someone else? Who's got power? Who's got money? Who's got influence? That's a really popular one. Who's got more followers on social media? And I think that we need to think about this ourselves, that we should be looking more for experience. I think what Jesus then goes on to say is that we should be simple like children and receive simple people like children. And that Jesus has a different set of expectations and a different set of priorities. And so when we're looking for wisdom, when we're looking for faithfulness, that these things are more important than prestige and wealth. Jesus lists 7 consequences for people who are barriers to others who are approaching Jesus. And I think, again, this is something we really have to think about as churches, because sometimes we organize our churches in such a way that it becomes hard for new people to come and get to know Jesus, because sometimes we put more emphasis on maintaining the institution of our church, maintaining the organization, maintaining the building, maintaining the budget. And we spend less time making sure that we are bringing people into the presence of Jesus, helping them build relationships with Jesus. And so I think reading this section is really important, that We need to think about getting rid of the parts of our ministry that distract us from actually building our relationship with God. Then we have a little bit about God wanting all the sheep, and that even lost people are to be found, so that all the believers are brought together in one flock under the shepherd of Jesus. So we always want to be going out to find the lost sheep and bring them back into relationship with God. And then we get to a very important part of Matthew that I think has tremendous wisdom for us today, and this is how to resolve conflict. So first, speak directly to each other. Second, bring a friend to be part of the conversation and facilitate it. You can think of this as a mediator. Third, bring it to the church leaders if you can't resolve it. And fourth, go again directly to the person. But in the end, if you cannot find reconciliation, you have to agree to separate and go different ways. Jesus says that we are to forgive 7 times, 70 times, which is a huge number of times to forgive, and gives a very powerful story about the king's servant who wants mercy from the king, which the king grants, but then the servant goes out and refuses to show mercy to the people who need mercy from the servant. And the king is very angry. So I think we need to think about, when do we offer mercy? When do we offer forgiveness? When do we expect it for ourselves? And how do we show it to others? And I think right now, when we're thinking about who is in our community, who are the new people who've moved in, who are immigrants, who are people that are looking for mercy and justice, do we have due process? Do we give all people the same rights in our community? These are really tough questions to struggle with. Even in Jesus' time, there's a big struggle over them. Roman citizens had very different rights than everyone else. Within the Jewish faith, the Jewish men had more rights and privileges than Jewish women, and both Jewish men and women had more privileges and rights than Gentile believers. So there was a hierarchy within the Jewish faith, just as we struggle with the hierarchy today. And so I think we really have to think about the story of the king and the servant, the call to forgiveness and mercy, and see what are the ways that we can live into forgiveness and mercy in our lives today as we continue to walk with Jesus in our lives. It's a lot to think about today. I hope you have your eyes open to the people around you to see if you have an opportunity to show mercy today. We'll see you next time.